I'm Ellen, and this is my co-host.
I'm Cathy.
Welcome to our podcast.
Yes, we are so glad you are here with us this evening. Before we jump into our podcast this evening, one of the things I wanted to say that Ellen and I have been talking about, and we've already mentioned this on our Facebook page, we are going to be changing our podcast name. We have a few ideas going around right now, and we're probably going to vote on them, maybe even ask you guys to vote and pick the top choice. But that's not going to happen probably until what, Friday?
Yeah, probably not until this weekend. I'm going out of town.
Yeah.
My nephew's graduating, so we're going to decide on the name. We just felt like we did like short sisters, but
it was drawing the wrong clientele.
Yeah.
We had, which we want people to come regardless.
Yeah.
But we just needed our podcast name to encompass more of what we were about.
Yeah.
Not limit it to us being short.
Yeah. Yeah. We wanted it to give an idea to people who are wanting to join our page what Cathy and I would be talking about on our podcast. So
yes.
That's part of the reason why we're changing it.
Yes.
But we're still the same.
We're still the same. Nothing else will change, just the name.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the other thing I wanted to do before we jumped in is to do a quick, 3 to 5 minute of you share how your week went.
Okay.
And what God maybe has been teaching you this week. And then I can do the same after you. And then we'll get into our podcast.
Okay. Well, this last Sunday was Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And I was so excited, y'all. So my son had been stationed abroad because he was in the military. He just got out the end of December. So he's actually back home now. He's going to school full time. He's working part time, but he wants to get his degree. Excuse me. The military is paying for it. So they all came over to my house. Chad grilled fajitas. And of course, I am the picture taker. And I was like, I want a picture. And the kids were like, oh, real? Okay, Mom. And Chad was like, it's Mother's Day. You're going to do what your mother asked you to do. So we take this picture. I posted it on our Facebook page. So the boys are standing behind Ashlyn and I. We're on the couch. And Ashley and I are sitting on the couch, and Chad's trying to take the picture. And a couple of times he's like, will you guys knock it off? Apparently Andrew and Austin had been messing with each other, pushing each other. I think at one point Austin was trying to put him in a headlock, and then they were making goofy faces. And he was like, will you just smile? And instead, normally I would have gotten irritated, but I was like, I miss this.
Yeah.
He has not been home for a Mother's Day in 7 years.
Yeah.
And so it was so nice to have him there. And I was so blessed. My mother-in-law was there. My dad came over, and it was just a nice get together. And I was spoiled by my family. So that was great.
That's sweet.
What about you, Cathy? How was your week?
So this weekend we went to East Texas to celebrate my husband's grandfather's 85th birthday, which was really sweet because people from all parts of his life came out to celebrate him. And in fact, one of the people who came to his party was one of the very first people he baptized.
Wow.
Yeah. And so she
How
came.
many people were there at the party? I know you guys were looking forward to that.
I want to say maybe 35, 40, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay.
And so it was just really cool getting to hear the testimonies from the different people of how Jason's grandfather impacted their lives, and just to see the kind of impact that he had was really special for me. I mean, I've known Jason's grandfather because Jason and I started dating in high school, so I've known him for half my life, but there's parts of him I didn't really know well until this party. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I didn't know that.
Neat.
So that was really special. And then we went to the nursing home, which is where Jason's grandma is now.
Okay.
And so we spent some time with her, and that was special. And it was a good weekend. And Jason's brother and his family were in town, and we haven't seen them since last Easter.
Okay.
And we only saw them for maybe 3 hours. So for us, it was just a lot of wonderful family time as well. Getting to be with the cousins and seeing Dorothy and her sweet cousin Katie interact. It was so sweet. But it was a
y'all
great
had
time.
to drive back and forth,
Yeah.
though. It was long driving.
It was a lot of driving.
Ooh.
Yes. Because we wanted to be at our church on Sunday.
Mhm.
And so we came back. We went there Saturday for the party, came home so that we can go to our church on Sunday, and then left after church and went back so that we can spend more time with
Okay.
family. But, oh, yes.
And you came home yesterday,
We
right?
came home yesterday. We were so
Girl.
tired.
Wow.
But it was a wonderful weekend.
Oh,
So
I'm glad.
anyway, well, this podcast episode is going to be our next book review, y'all.
Mhm.
And what Ellen and I have been doing, I wish you could see our little note system that we've
Yeah.
got going on. What we thought would be cool is at the end of each series that we do would be we'd have a guest speaker, which we are going to
Mhm.
have our first guest speaker next week. We're very excited about that. It's our
Yes,
daughters.
It's our daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a Q&A thing. So I told Cathy, I said, I picked out the specific questions that my daughter can be a little
smart
bit,
aleck.
smart alecky. So I said, I think let's see if she answers them like this. So I'm going to see. So her daughter and my daughter are going to be on. So we're super excited.
Yes. So what I was saying is at the end of each series, we're going to do a guest, and then we're
Mhm.
also going to do a book review. And since this new series that we're going into, which the first episode released today, which was our pregnancies,
Mhm.
it's kind of our motherhood journey. I picked out this book. I picked out a few books, and I said, Ellen, you pick which one we're going to read. And this is the one she said, let's do this.
Yes.
And it is called Get Out of My Face.
Mm.
How to Reach Angry, Unmotivated Teens with Biblical Counsel
Yeah.
by Rick Horn. So this is the book that she and I are going to be talking about now. And why we picked it, I picked some top-rated parenting books
Yeah.
that has come recommended to me by either friends or authors that I follow. And this was one of them. And Ellen said, let's do it. And I was like, you know what? I have a teenager as of the last Christmas. And I have a daughter who is going to be 11. So she's just around the corner.
Yeah.
This would be great for me.
Yeah. And I just got done with my youngest child. He's 19. So he's barely out of the teenagery stage, and he's in a little bit beginning of adulthood. So
Right.
I was able to relate to this probably a little bit easier than I would have, because it's been a minute since I've had littles.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So we have a couple of questions that
Mm.
we have put together that we're going to discuss. But you're going to see us flip through. What? Sorry, guys.
My Apple Watch decided that it was going to record exactly what we were saying.
I literally heard it's actually kind of perfect, y'all, for this podcast. I heard, I'm not sure I understand. I mean, can I get an amen from y'all?
Amen.
Don't you have teenagers that say, I don't understand
what you're saying. I
Really?
don't get it.
It's clear as day.
I don't get it. Yes. Yeah, y'all have to understand something. Before we started recording this, her husband's going to have to edit, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes of us laughing hysterically to where we're crying. I don't even know what we were laughing about now.
Yeah,
I don't know
either.
We couldn't stop laughing, and I'm like, okay, we got to stop because we got to get recorded on this podcast.
So you'll have to forgive us if we're a little bit all over the place because we were before we started recording this.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's why we picked this book. The next question is, what did you like about this book?
I did like the fact that it has a method in there.
Yeah.
That we're going to talk about that you can use with your teen. And they go into a lot of detail about it. I liked how it broke it down and explained the different parts of this method. and gave scenarios.
Yeah.
The
I love that.
scenarios were very, very helpful because if they gave you this method and they explain it,
Mm-hmm.
I know in my head, I'm like, okay, I hope you're going to give me something that I could relate
Tangible.
it to.
Yes.
So they did, and they're very good about that. What about you?
I will second. I loved how they used examples to like
Mhm.
hone in on this is what we mean when we say
Yes.
this part of the method.
Yes.
This is what we mean when we say this part of the method. And they didn't just give like one example, they gave multiple examples of this scenario was a father and his son. This scenario was a daughter and her mother. This scenario was a teacher and a student. And
Mhm.
so it was really helpful because
Yeah.
you got to see it spread throughout.
Yeah.
I also loved how it taught us, we were talking about this earlier.
Mhm.
It used Proverbs, the book
Yeah.
of Proverbs, as its base, really,
Yes.
because the author over and over again mentioned how the book of Proverbs, if you read it, it's really like an instruction manual written
Mhm.
for young people,
Yeah.
teens.
Yeah.
And so he pulls a lot of concepts from Proverbs and kind of frames their method and their ideology from that. This is the biblical way
Yeah.
to communicate. These are the skills that you need to develop
Mhm.
to talk with your teen and to help them talk with you. So I did love that aspect.
Yeah. I like that. I'm trying to think of some other things. I like the fact that it was teaching you how to communicate with your
Mhm.
teenager. And for those of you that are parents of teenagers, it is a very, very difficult stage. They're at that stage where they're coming out of childhood. They're feeling hormonal.
Mhm.
They're getting so close, so much more closer to adulthood. They want more freedom.
Mhm.
And you're butting heads. And I love how they gave ways of how to communicate.
Mhm.
And I was telling Cathy, I said at one point, I was like, man, first of all, where was this book when I was raising? I had one very headstrong teenager. I could have used this book. But it made me think about how I was as a parent
Mhm.
and how I wished I did things differently.
Mhm.
And so I've told Cathy, I said I felt a little bit guilty at one point because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I was a very good parent with my teenager. But hindsight, I told her also, I related it a lot to teaching. I'm a teacher
Mhm.
and I have a lot of students with a mindset like this. Like
Mhm.
they're just wanting to get something out. They want more freedom. They don't understand why they have to do it this way, so I related a lot of it to teaching.
I want to check real quick. Can you hear me okay in the microphone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I think I can hear you if it's a little bit closer
Okay.
to you. There we
Is
go.
that better?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Ooh.
There we go. You're fine.
All right.
This is the better microphone. So if you're low, Jason can turn it up a little bit. But I don't think you are. Now I hear you a lot better.
Okay. Cool.
So to piggyback off of what you said, that's one of the things I loved about the book too, is because it talked about how to build that relationship. We were chatting about this. And we'll talk about this when we get in the method. You keep hearing us say method, but that's going to be one of the points we talk about. But one of the things that they teach us in the method is, in order to talk to your teen, you got to build this bridge. And once you've built the bridge, then you can engage. And once you've engaged, then you can lead them to the gospel. But until that bridge is built, you're just going to have a teen who is angry and unmotivated and doesn't want to listen to you.
Yeah.
And y'all, I got to tell you, I finished this book during the week. If you listened to our episode last week, you heard me tell the story of Jason was gone for a week and I was struggling one day with my teen to the point where it's like, I'm calling Chad Bishop. Well, I had just finished this book like the day after, or maybe even that night. And when I finished this book, the next day I started to put some of these things into practice. And I was like, wow, this was good.
Yeah.
And I was really thankful for the teaching that I did remember
Yeah.
and gleaned from this. And Ellen, you were saying even earlier that it's not an overnight thing.
No, I mean, this method, you're not going to be able to use it one time and it's going to work. I mean, it is probably going to take, excuse me, ooh, several weeks. And depending on how your own child is, it could take several months. As with any method, there may be a time where it's not going to work, or you might forget a step, or it's just the scenario may not exactly fit. I mean, I think the scenarios that they gave were good, but in my mind, I remember when they were giving the scenarios, I was like, that's not exactly sometimes how it happens. I like the different scenarios, but what if this happens or this happens?
Yeah. And, it's funny. I think that was mentioned in one of the reviews I was reading. One parent was saying, I do like this, but I think it would be nice. There's, like you said, it's not a one size fits all sort of thing.
Absolutely.
I think this is just a general idea and approach.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that one of the author, wasn't he a counselor at a high school or a Christian high school? I'm sorry, y'all. I thought that.
I feel like he was. I think he did mention that.
Yes.
It's been a little bit since we've read the book, so we don't. And guys, like, I am going to tell you, it was a lot of information. For me, I had to put it down.
Yeah. For
yeah.
sure.
It was probably more, I think we'd said more of like, more educational.
It's very much an educational book for sure. And I would say that I think I read, because there's so much you have to think about and process. I'm pretty sure this took me maybe 2 weeks to read, because there was like one chapter where I had to think about and process a little bit more and understand.
Yeah, I had to process a lot too. It took me a little bit longer than you did.
And they even say in this book that their whole idea, the reason why it's like I'm going to say method, that it takes time. Like you may be on the L part. The first part of the acronym is L, which stands for listen big. That might take you a few months, especially if you're not in the practice of doing that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like you want to just develop it well enough so that it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those were the things that Elle and I both liked about the book. Now, was there anything you didn't like about the book?
I mean, for me, I need information in chunks, because that's how I learn. A lot of information for me is too much. And I felt like just trying to remember the methods and think about practicing that. I mean, for me, it was a little bit harder because I don't have a teen. So it was hard to think about relating to it a little bit more. But once I thought about it on a teaching end, it was a little bit better. You and I discussed this. The way it presents the gospel at the end of the book, instead of kind of weaving it through, or even putting it at the beginning and then also putting it at the end. It's literally the very last chapter, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, we chatted some about this.
Yeah.
They do, there's like little nuggets, right? Like, it reminds us of gospel truths, but it doesn't tie in scripture. Like it tells us, it reminds us that our teenager is a sinner who needs Jesus. Okay, that is true.
Yes.
But like, so as we were saying, we felt like the meat and the heart of the gospel was tagged on at the very end.
Yeah. I mean, I like the fact that it pointed out, because you said this when you and I were discussing it before the podcast. We're very quick to point out our child's fault.
Mhm.
Well, you did A, B, C, D,
Mhm.
whereas we don't often look at ourselves as the parent.
Mhm.
And in this book, it does mention we have to remember that we're sinners also.
Mhm.
Not just our kid is always doing the wrong thing or choosing the
Mhm.
wrong choice. We have to remember that and give them grace for it.
Yeah. I'm slacking on
Yeah,
my job.
no, I am too. I know Jason's going to be like, oh my goodness.
Oh, that was fun.
I know.
So yeah, I agree. I would have loved to see the gospel weaved throughout it more.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of more of a, I mean, they do. You mentioned that the author does bring in Proverbs a lot throughout, which is a book full of wisdom and disciplining and training your young adult, young man, young woman. But yeah, it would have been nice to see the gospel a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, that's not a big. I enjoyed the book. It was really helpful for me. Okay, so who would you recommend this book to? Who would you think would benefit from reading this book?
Well, definitely if you have a teenager, I would definitely recommend that for a teenager. If you're raising one right now, probably administrators, educational administrators, because I'm on the leadership side. I'm not an administrator, but I am a leader on campus. You deal with people and students that are like this. So I think that would be a good book for them. And also, like, if you work with youth at church, because there's a lot of kids. I mean, we come from the background. We were house parents. And then my husband was a youth minister for 5 years at our old church. So just even dealing with teenagers. In fact, we had, before our churches merged, we had a group of foster kids. And so that is helpful in that aspect because they're coming from different backgrounds. They don't have a biblical background a lot of times. So I would definitely recommend it to those to people like that. What about you? What do you think?
I'm going to second that. I definitely think parents of teens, I think school administrators, counselors.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on.
I don't know what's going on with my microphone. But you can hear me. I need to send a talk into it.
What just happened? What's happening?
Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. It's been a day. I have 6.5 more days until the end of school. I might be a little bit crazy.
And excited. I'm starting to feel it. So I'm going to say I agree. I think if you're a parent of a teen, if you're a youth worker, a school administrator, even a counselor, and I'll tag it on with, even if you have a teen that's not, as it says, how to reach angry, unmotivated teens. Because I can see somebody being like, well, my teen's not angry or unmotivated. I just think it's a great book. And in fact, he quotes or talks about one of my favorite books called The Peacemaker, I believe, by Ken Seed, I believe is how you say his last name. And it's a biblical approach of being a peacemaker. And so this kind of, The Peacemaker is a little bit more my favorite of the two.
Okay.
Because it's kind of the same idea and concept.
Yeah.
But this is different in that this takes your teen and shows you examples and how to apply the method.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I agree.
Well, and I also, too, even you said you may not have an angry teen, but I think also it teaches you how to have good and open communication with your teen, whether or not they're angry or not. And making that relationship and building that bridge of communication even better.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways.
Well, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the actual method. And the nice thing that the author does in the book is he makes it into an acronym, which is LCLP. And the first acronym is L is for listen big. C is for clarify narrow. The next L is for look wide. And then P is for plan small.
Mm-hmm.
And Ellen, I thought maybe you would give a little bit more of background of what each letter means and what we read.
So L is listen big. So be active when you're listening. A lot of times, like Cathy gave the great example to me earlier, because Joshua said this to you actually when, he said, well, every time I ask you a question, you snap at me.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was cognizant of that. And so the next time he came up to her and said, I just want to ask you a question. Can you please listen to me before you tell me no? And she said, okay. And so you listened to him and the way you reacted to him, like, I understand what you're saying. I don't think it would be a good idea now, but maybe tomorrow. And you said that the outcome was so much better than if he would have asked the question, she would have snapped at him and said, what? So be active when you're listening. Listen to what your child, when I say be active, listen to what they say, repeat back what they say. So what I hear you say is this, is that correct? And asking them if that's correct. Don't just be passive, guys. I mean, actually dialogue back and forth with your child. Be purposeful with your communication. And try to relate to what they're having, what their problem is or what their issue is, and try and relate to that. Like I said this already, listen by echoing your teen's feelings. So you feel like this. So I'm hearing you say this. And even asking them why. Listen for what your teen does not want. So you don't want me to do this. Okay. Ask them why. So it's two ways, I think.
And didn't we talk about a little bit too out there on for the listening part, being reminded that our body language says a lot.
Yes.
Because my husband has definitely said, Cathy, your face is literally screaming at them. You may not be verbally screaming at our kids, but your face is screaming at them. Figure out a way to communicate differently. But right now, that's not it. And then didn't you say that your husband even like you or something like that?
I mean, body language is everything. Now, my husband knows definitely when I am angry or upset because I fold my arms. I fold my arms like this. You're mad at me. I'm not mad at you. Yes, you are. You're folding your arms. You're stomping around the house. So body language is everything. Make eye contact. Be open. I think they even said in the book, be open, like even where you're sitting.
Yes.
Make it to where it's open, where it doesn't seem like it's closed off and you're like dominating them.
So, and I've actually started implying that more in the way that I talk to Joshua and Evangeline. There have been times where like when I'm confronting, one of my kids might literally be lying on the floor, like, and so now when it's going to potentially be a difficult conversation, we come to the kitchen table and I say, okay, we're going to go talk, but we're going to sit at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
So that there is like the table.
You're the same.
So we're not in each other's face.
Yeah. Like, you are at the same level, basically.
We're at the same level.
Yeah.
I'm not over him.
Yeah.
He's not over me.
Yeah.
We're not in each other's face.
Yeah.
He's not lying on the floor. We're like showing, I actually want to listen. I want to care. I want you to know I care.
Yeah.
And so since I've implemented that, I can tell you, in fact, my son said it today. I was like, yes. At the dinner table, my son, who's 13, he said to his dad, Dad, we had a great day today. Like school was good. We got our work done. Nobody was mad. Nobody was yelling. I'm like,
nice.
That is so amazing.
Mark that in your mommy calendar, mommy journal.
Yes. So very excited that they're even seeing a difference in me.
Yeah. That's cool.
Anyway, well, I'll share a little bit more on. So you just finished the first part, which is listen big, and I will talk a little bit about the C, which is clarify narrow. So what clarify narrow means is that you're exposing the realities of your teen's experience. You're helping them see what it is that's actually going on, like what they're actually feeling. You're like bringing it out. You're drawing it out. And then what can be done about it? Okay, now we know what's really happening. What can we do about it? I think it's really important that we emphasize. I wanted to go to, before we jump into the clarify narrow, one of the things, and I think I wanted to read this. Hold on. Sorry, y'all.
What page?
Page 35. That even may not be. Is that funny? Do we have the same?
I don't know. We probably do.
Or maybe, hold on. Sorry, guys. I thought I was a little bit more.
Mike is not my friend tonight.
Well, I guess I didn't put it. I thought I did. That's okay.
You'll find it at
if
the end
I
of the
find
podcast.
it later. Oh, yeah. That's when I'm going to find it. That's when I'm going to find it for sure. Well, so after you're listening big, you're building the bridge so that you can talk to your teen, get to your teen. You're clarifying the narrow. You're exposing the realities.
There goes the ding again.
It's been dinging all night long, y'all. So let me just read what the first part, what the chapter on clarify narrow says real quick, so you can get a
What chapter was that?
Chapter 7, page 95. This is what it says for clarify narrow. In this chapter, you will learn how to shake an angry teen out of his habit of excusing his actions, minimizing his responsibility, or blaming others for his angry choices. And they give a few examples all throughout on how they applied this, how they helped walk a teen through this particular struggle. I can't remember.
God, our husbands are loud. No, it's just my husband.
So yeah, that's the clarify narrow part of the acronym. And I do apologize. It feels like we slowed down a little bit, but some of that's just because it has been a minute since we've read this book.
It's been a couple of weeks since we've read it, so we're trying to refamiliarize it. Like we said, there was a lot of good information, but trying to get all the information was, or remember it was kind of difficult at times. I mean, it's a lot of good things here. Let's see. Expose the realities of your teen's experience. Help them see what is going on and what can be done about it.
Yeah.
Yep. It does talk about giving them common grace. How often do we give not even just our teens, but anybody grace?
That's the thing. So this is not in this particular chapter, but on page 50 and the wise ones, like there was a quote that was really very timely for me, and it was God does not confront us with every area of sin and weakness in our lives in a single week. He works in stages as we can bear it.
Ooh, I underlined that in my book too.
And it was just a reminder to me that I don't need to sit down my teen and be like, confront, here's how you messed up every point today.
Yeah. Because God doesn't do that with us.
He doesn't.
Gives us grace.
It's the same. It's funny to me. I'm finding this to be helpful with even my toddler, my 2-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm not almost 2-year-old. I'm not fighting her on some things because some things I'm like, this isn't a battle. This is ridiculous. Otherwise, if I'm constantly fighting everything, I'm going to create a child who feels like they've been micromanaged their whole life
Yeah.
and angry, and I just don't want that. And
Yeah.
so it reminds me a lot of the same with a teen. I'm not going to confront everything of his. I'm going to confront the big stuff that's really, this is big and we need to talk
Yeah.
about this. But
Yeah.
like in my mind, I think waking up late in the morning is a sign of laziness because
Yeah.
you're not getting to work and getting your work done. And so would I want to be like, hey, this is wrong? Maybe at some point, but that's not my big issue right now. Right.
Right.
So that's the C, is to clarify, narrow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to briefly mention the L?
So L is look wide, discover your teen's solution. So basically, you're helping your teen come up with a solution. It's not you telling them, well, you need to do A, B. I think you need to do A, B, C, D. It's okay. So here's what we're seeing. What can we do? What can we come up with that will help you in this situation?
And we talked about this. Remember the scenario? One of the scenarios they gave in this situation was a mom and a daughter.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you want to share that part?
So the scenario that was given was, it was a mom and a daughter. They were battling it out to the point where her teen was very aggressive with her, even almost like shoving her, I think.
And so.
She was aggressive with her sisters, and the daughter simply just wanted to have a little bit more freedom. And the mom was getting frustrated because the mom was telling the counselor, well, she's just disrespecting me. She's yelling at me. She's not listening. She's not doing what I'm asking her to do. Whereas the teen is going, well, all she does is yell at me. She doesn't listen to me, And then I think the counselor came together with both of them and said, okay, think of one time where you two were both, where it worked for you, where you guys were both listening to each other, and they were able to come up with one. It was the scenario where her mother was telling her to come in. She said she didn't want to come in. She wanted to hang out with her friends. So her mom gave her the solution. Okay, I understand what you're saying. So what if you sit outside on the porch and you can still hang out with your friends and still stay outside, even though it's dark outside? They were able to have a conversation and communicate that to each other without yelling and screaming. Because the mother said, well, the reason why I'm yelling and screaming at you and raising my voice is that you're not listening to me. How often as a parent, because when I read that part, I thought, oh my gosh, I did that a lot with my kids, where especially with my one child that was very, very headstrong, would always say to me, why are you yelling at me? I didn't do anything, Mom. Why are you yelling at me? What? Here, and I'm thinking, oh, she's giving me attitude. Oh, I just said she. I was trying not to say which child it was, but I was getting an attitude. And where really it was just, she wanted to be heard.
Yeah.
I don't think she was trying to be disrespectful. How often do we say, oh, you're being disrespectful? They just want to be heard.
Yeah. One of the things we tell both of our kids, in fact, my son was asking today, he got his Switch taken away from him for a month, and he's super bummed about it because he's been waiting forever for this particular Switch game that just came out. That he bought and he saved and all the things. And he can't play it until he gets his Switch back. Oh. He's like, I don't want to keep losing my Switch. What can I do? And his dad and I have told him forever. And it's a phrase that we use constantly with our children. And anytime we are dropping them off somewhere or they're going to stay with grandparents or whatever, it is, what are the two things Mommy and Daddy want from you? And they will say it's to love God and to love people.
Yeah.
And so with Joshua tonight, it was, okay, what do we tell you? If you do these things, it's promised that it will go well for you. If you love God and you love people, it will go well for you. Well, did you love Mom well? No. Okay, so if you want to keep your Switch, love God more.
Yeah.
And so it's just a constant of reminding them, like, your sin does have, there is a cause and effect. And if you are going to be sinful and disobedient, there is an effect with that.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be grounded anymore, or don't want something taken away from you, think of what is it, and just don't do that thing. And so we try to simplify it for them to help them know, okay, like, and I'm trying to help my teen think through this. And I know it's hard okay, if what you're about to say or what you're about to do isn't going to love the Lord or love the person, just don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's really hard. I get it. Like, their hormones are everywhere. Their upper brain is still developing. They're still trying to make the connections.
It's teaching them to make wise choices. And this is even mentioned in the book, is your teens are going to make choices, but as parents, we need to help them decide what's a wise choice and what isn't a wise choice. Okay, why do you think that wasn't a wise choice? Tell me why. What consequence? Like you said, what were the consequences that happened? Why is this a good choice? And what could happen if you make this good choice?
You know, we just finished Evangeline, and Joshua and I just finished during Bible time. I mean, Dorothy was part of it too, but she was in and out. A small study, a 10-week study on Proverbs, and going through just a few verses that have been mentioned in this book of what does it mean to choose your friends wisely, and what does it mean to be a hard worker, and what does it mean to love the Lord. And so it was a great study and reminder that it makes me actually want to study Proverbs a little bit more with the kids and help them think through how to be wise people in a culture where it can be challenging, for sure.
That's true.
So before we jump to the last point, I wanted to read. I was telling Ellen, I pretty much underlined this whole page.
Pretty much underlined a whole paragraph, but that's okay. It's a good paragraph.
I'm going to read this real quick. It's part of the Look Why, Discover Your Teen Solutions part. The LCLP approach with an angry teen is powerful because it is so highly respectful. Teens pick that up quickly. It affirms their freedom to change or not. It asserts their competency to make decisions if they want to. It makes use of their ability to think for themselves if they are willing to do so. It acknowledges their uniqueness as individuals and their ability to stand up for what will benefit them regardless of the choices others make, if they are courageous enough to do so. This approach allows you to confirm your love for your teen, even if he chooses to do something that compounds his hurts, losses, and pain. It affirms his value because he is God's image bearer and someone God has brought into your life, not because he always makes good choices. Your parenting goal is to help your angry, unmotivated teen make better choices. You can't do that for him, but you can reason with him and keep his options in front of him with the outcomes, positive and negative, laid out clearly. Reminding him of the need to do something different is a reasonable, persuasive way of doing that. I loved it because I have been this way, and I grew up this way of being domineering and like you're doing it my way or no way. Now, obviously, there are times where like you have to obey, right?
Yeah.
But instead of being so authoritative and so like, it's more of a relationship of like let's talk, let's communicate, And I told Ellen, I'm really starting to put this more into practice, and I'm going to have to echo what Joshua said. In the past 2 weeks, I feel like there's a lot more peace in our home because I'm not so towards my teen. I'm more, okay, let's talk.
Yeah.
And I like now that we come to the table and we're on the same level, instead of me domineering or him trying to domineer. Well, I guess I'm not domineering him now because he's taller than me. But
taller than you, but
anyway,
it's okay. No, I got what you're saying.
The last part. So Ellen mentioned listen big. I mentioned clarify narrow. And then she talked a little bit about looking wide. The
Mhm.
last part is plan small.
Yeah.
So the things that your teen wants to change, let's start off small. Don't be like, okay, let's do it all at once. You know,
Yeah.
it's a journey. It's a race. It's in our
Mhm.
sanctification. It's a
Yeah.
one day at a time.
Yeah.
Um, so that part, it's just, you know, planning small, thinking of the
Yeah.
things they want and going from there.
I was equating this book a lot to education. And it's like when I have a student who's either struggling, I'm like reading recovery. And I pull out students in every grade level that struggle with reading. So it's coming up with a plan for them that's best for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I even talking about what their goals are for reading. But also, like when you're trying to teach a child, you don't want to. I also coach teachers as well. If I'm coaching a teacher and I see there's several things that they may need to work on, I'm not going to throw that all at them and be like, okay, well, let's first work on your classroom management, and then let's working about the timing and the pacing of your lesson, and then let's work on small group. They're going to get overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and they're not going to know what to do. It's the same thing with your teen. Okay, so here's what we have this issue or this problem. What's something that we can come up with that would help you to make a wise choice or a better decision, or what would work for
Mm-hmm.
you?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a solution for you. It's coming up with a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the book, it mentioned being consistent with that plan. It talks about when you come up with a plan with your child, making sure that you're coming in behind them and asking them, hey, bud, hey, so how did it go with your teacher
Mm-hmm.
when you did the problem her way? You know,
Mm-hmm.
how did that work for you? I think the situation they gave with that was with the granddaughter and the grandmother, because the grandmother moved in with them.
Yes. And
And
she kept interrupting
yeah,
her time to
yeah,
do homework.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so the mom helped her come up with the solution. Okay, well, when grandma comes, why don't you talk to her for a little bit and then tell her, okay, grandma, I love you, but I need to do my work. And that was their solution that they came up with. And then a couple of days later, mom asked, hey, how did that solution, how is that working for you? That solution that we came up to help grandma, kind of give you some space. How did that work? She was honest and she said, it worked for a while, but then there was one day where she just kept talking to me and I snapped at her.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mom was, okay, so what could you do that was different?
Mm-hmm.
How could we make that a little bit better? Because but she did point out, hey, you did it for 2 days. I'm
Mm-hmm.
proud of you, and acknowledging that they did the
Mm-hmm.
right wise choice. How could we make it better?
Mm-hmm. I do like that.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the acronym. And then the last part is just like the gospel and why we do this. Like, what's the point
Yeah.
of all of this? And
Yeah.
it's just so that we can encourage our teen to grow up to be men and women who love God and love people
Mhm.
and who aren't full of anger.
Yeah.
I did want to read something I highlighted in the summary and conclusion part that was really convicting for me. And so I'm going to read it real quick. The testimony of Scripture. This is on page 147. If you wanted to see Ellen, you didn't have to.
Yeah.
The testimony of Scripture is that our words make a difference. What we speak can encourage or discourage, energize or dishearten. How we speak to our teens and what we say can exasperate, infuriate, or communicate hope and anticipation. And then Proverbs 15:4, a gentle tongue is a tree of life.
Amen.
And it was really good for me to hear that. And it really convicted me and made me think, okay, how am I bringing life to my children? And not just my children, even my husband.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that my speech is gentle and kind and brings life.
Yes.
So in the end, I would definitely recommend this book. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads.
I think I did too. It is a good book.
It is. It's a lot to think about though and process, and so it's got about how many pages?
170, I think, give or take. I do recommend that you read this in chunks, guys, because it is a lot of information. We both made annotations on the side. We've underlined things. I would recommend keeping a journal if you want to write down some notes about it. But it was a good book.
It was a good book.
I felt like it was a good book.
I would definitely agree.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thanks for reading this with me, Ellen.
Yeah.
I think our next book review will be one on marriage. Is that what we decided?
Yes, which we need to get the book for that.
Yes, I have that. I need to give it to you.
Okay, cool.
So exciting. Well, that is the end of our podcast. We are so glad that you came.
It's a good thing because my microphone's going down.
I don't know why.
I'm like, hey guys, I can't go any lower. And then I'm like, hello.
I don't know.
I don't
we'll have to. It's okay. The nice thing is that's a night. Like,
literally, I just have to make sure that I talk into the mic. Because there's a couple times I was like this. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll have to ask Jason.
Yeah.
Maybe it was I don't know. It's fine.
I don't know who
yours
sat
will
here.
be
It's
fine.
probably my husband, but you know.
Anyway, we're so glad you came. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week.
All right, ladies.
Bye.
See y'all later.